The attack happened in seconds. Claws, teeth, a flash of fur. Then, blood hit the pavement. The evening air carried the scent of dry leaves and distant smoke. The last rays of sunlight stretched long shadows over the quiet neighborhood. A fragile moment between warmth and cold. Still. Silent. Margaret Walker tightened her sweater. At 82, she had learned to savor these peaceful evenings. The predictability. The safety. Her neighborhood wasn't large, just a small cluster of homes on the outskirts of town, where pavement met gravel and the woods loomed close. Neighbors knew each other by name. They waved from porches, shared small talk at the mailbox. But lately, something felt different. The whispers had started a week ago. Did you hear about the stray cat that went missing? Probably coyotes. Or bobcats. They've been coming closer. Margaret had brushed it off. Wild animals weren't new. They kept their distance. Until tonight. She reached her car, keys cool in her palm. Clicked the unlock button. The beep echoed through the stillness. Then, rustling. Soft. Subtle. From the tree line. She paused, frowning. Just the wind, probably. Another rustle. Closer. A creeping movement in the brush. Margaret's fingers tightened around her keys. She glanced over her shoulder. Nothing. Just trees, shifting in the breeze. The woods held their breath. She exhaled, shaking her head. Silly. She wasn't some helpless old woman spooked by the dark. But as she opened the car door, the feeling didn't leave. A presence. Watching. Waiting. Her neck prickled. Move. She turned, just as something shifted again. Not the wind. Not her imagination. Something real. Low to the ground. Hidden beyond the grass. Margaret's breath caught. A shape, slipping between the trees. A flicker of tawny fur. Smooth. Intentional. Her heartbeat drummed in her ears. A cat? No, too big. A dog? No, too silent. Bobcats. A slow, creeping fear curled in her chest. The missing pets. The warnings. She stepped back. A twig snapped. She spun, eyes locked on the woods. Nothing. But the silence was wrong. Not peaceful. Predatory. Bobcats didn't attack people. They hunted rabbits, small animals. Not full-grown adults. Still, her hands trembled as she reached for the car door. The metal felt cold. Solid. A tether to reality. She just had to get inside. Shut the door. One more step. Then, a blur of motion. Fast. Violent. Something shot from the brush. A snarl. Claws flashed in the dim light. A weight slammed into her legs. Margaret screamed. The world tilted. Pavement rushed up to meet her. Pain. Sharp. Immediate. She gasped, trying to push up, but something latched onto her leg. Claws. Teeth. Fabric tore. Hot breath burned against her skin. She kicked. Struggled. But it was strong, too strong. Another shape lunged from the side. Two of them. Thin. Starving. Desperate. Their eyes gleamed with hunger. Margaret clawed at the pavement, heart hammering. She screamed for help, but the houses were too far. The doors were shut. No one was coming. A claw raked across her arm. Pain exploded. Her vision blurred. Strength faltered. The world shrank to this moment, this fight she was losing. And then, a sound. Deep. Thunderous. A growl, low and rolling, shaking the air. Margaret gasped. The bobcats hesitated. Their ears twitched, bodies tensing. Heavy footsteps pounded against the pavement. Fast. Relentless. Charging straight toward them. A shape emerged, muscle and fury, hurtling forward with unshakable purpose. The bobcats barely had time to react before it collided with them at full force. Margaret, trembling, blooded, barely able to move, looked up into the eyes of her savior. Buddy, the neighbor's pit bull. A dog no one had expected to be a hero. And yet, here he was, standing between her and death. His teeth bared. His stance unwavering. Margaret hit the ground hard. Pain jolted through her bones, her hips striking the pavement with a force that stole her breath. But there was no time to register it. Because they were on her. Claws sank into her leg, slicing through fabric, through skin. A searing burn shot up her thigh. She gasped, too shocked to scream. A snarl. Low. Vicious. One had its jaws locked around her calf, shaking, tearing. The second lunged. A flash of white-hot pain streaked across her forearm. Then the blood came. Hot. Wet. Seeping into the cracks of the pavement. Margaret cried out, more horror than pain. She wasn't a hunter. She wasn't a fighter. She had never been prey. Until now. She thrashed, hands scrambling against the pavement, trying to push herself toward the open car door, just inches away. The bobcats wouldn't let her. A weight slammed into her chest. The air left her lungs. The world blurred, shadows and snarls and the coppery scent of blood. One pinned her down. Its breath hot against her face, rank with the scent of raw meat. Margaret twisted, but it was too strong. Panic clawed at her throat. This was it. She was going to die. On the pavement. In her own driveway. Ripped apart. Her mind raced for a way out, but her body, old, fragile, betrayed her. Her strength was fading. Her arms trembled. Vision blurred. Heartbeat pounded so hard it drowned out everything else. Except a sound. Low. Rumbling. A growl. Deep. Menacing. Not the bobcats. Something else. Something stronger. Margaret's head snapped toward the noise, just in time to see movement. A shape. Charging toward them. Fast. Powerful. A blur of muscle and fury. The bobcats hesitated. Their ears twitched. Bodies tensed. And then, impact. The first bobcat was sent sprawling across the pavement, yowling, a sound so sharp it sent a shiver down Margaret's spine. The second spun, teeth bared, locking onto the new threat. Buddy. The neighbor's pit bull. But this wasn't the relaxed dog she'd seen lounging on his porch. This was something else. Primal. Protective. Deadly. Buddy lunged, his jaws locking around the nearest bobcat's throat. With a vicious shake, he wrenched it back, away from Margaret. The wildcat shrieked, twisting, claws raking Buddy's muzzle. He didn't let go. Didn't stop. Margaret, dazed, forced herself onto her elbows. Blood dripped from her arm. Her leg throbbed. But she couldn't look away. Buddy was fighting for her. The second bobcat circled, tail lashing. 2 against 1. Buddy was strong, but these weren't house cats. They were wild. Hungry. Desperate. Could he win? Margaret had spent her life believing pit bulls were dangerous. She had never expected one to save her. And yet, here he was. Her only chance. Buddy released the first bobcat with a violent shake, sending it skidding across the driveway. Blood streaked his muzzle, but his focus never wavered. His eyes locked onto the second bobcat. It hesitated now. For the first time, they were afraid. But would they leave? Margaret wasn't sure. Buddy stood his ground, panting, blood dripping from a fresh gash above his eye. He didn't blink. Didn't back down. And the bobcats, they were deciding. A fight to the death? Or retreat? The air was thick with tension. The only sound, the wind stirring through the trees. Then, a flick of a tail. One bobcat turned. Fled. Gone. Only one left. Buddy didn't hesitate. He lunged, slamming into the remaining bobcat. Teeth met fur. A savage snap. A yowl of pain. The wildcat thrashed, claws flashing. Buddy didn't flinch. Didn't stop. Didn't lose. The fight was over before it began. The bobcat stumbled back, stunned. Then, with a final, furious snarl, it turned and vanished into the trees. Silence crashed down. Buddy stood in the middle of the driveway, chest heaving, breath curling into the cold air. Blood stained his muzzle. His legs trembled from exhaustion. But he was alive. And so was Margaret. She opened her mouth, but no words came. What do you say to something like that? To a dog that had just saved your life? Buddy turned to her, eyes searching. Not for praise. Not for thanks. Just to make sure she was okay. Margaret swallowed hard. He had been watching. From his yard. From his porch. He'd seen the bobcats before anyone else. And he hadn't waited. Hadn't hesitated. He'd made a choice. And that choice had saved her life. Margaret let out a shaky breath. Pain burned through her body. Her hands were slick with blood. Shock made her limbs heavy. But she was alive. Because of him. Buddy limped toward her, blooded but undefeated. She reached out. Her fingers brushed his fur, warm, strong, real. A sob caught in her throat. He had fought for her. He had won. But something wasn't right. Buddy staggered. His breathing was ragged. The fight had taken its toll. Margaret's heart clenched. Was he hurt worse than he looked? Would he make it? She had to do something. Fast. But could she even get to her phone? Her vision swam. And then, darkness. Everything was still. The world held its breath. Margaret blinked, vision swimming, heart slamming against her ribs. She was alive. And so was Buddy. But he wasn't moving. He stood there, chest heaving, blood streaking his fur, his own and theirs. His legs trembled, swaying slightly, but his eyes never left the trees. Watching. Waiting. The bobcats were gone, forced back into the shadows. But Buddy didn't trust it. Not yet. His ears flicked, listening. His nostrils flared, testing the air. Margaret swallowed hard. It was over, right? She forced herself to move, to sit up, despite the fiery pain in her leg. Buddy. Her voice was barely a whisper. His ear twitched. Slowly, finally, he turned to her. And that's when she saw it. The wound. Her breath hitched. A deep gash tore across his shoulder, blood darkening his fur, dripping onto the pavement. Buddy took a step toward her. Staggered. Tried again. His legs buckled. Then, he collapsed. Margaret screamed. No. 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 He had fought so hard. He had saved her. He couldn't. She dragged herself forward, ignoring the pain in her own leg, hands trembling as she reached for him. His body was warm. Still breathing. But barely. Buddy. Her voice cracked. His eyes fluttered open. Weak. Unfocused. A soft whimper escaped his throat. Margaret's chest tightened. She pressed a hand against his wound, desperately trying to slow the bleeding. He let out a low, pained sigh. Didn't pull away. She had to do something. Her phone. Where was her phone? Her gaze darted around frantically. Then, there. Face down on the pavement. She lunged for it, fingers shaking as she swiped at the screen, smearing it with blood. Her neighbor. Buddy's owner. She hit the call button. Once. Twice. Come on, she whispered. Please, please. Click. Hello. Relief crashed through her. It's Buddy, she gasped. He saved me, but he's hurt, bleeding, I don't know how bad, but Where are you? The driveway. I need help, I can't. I'm coming. The line went dead. Margaret turned back to Buddy. His breathing was slower now. Shallow. Panic surged in her chest. Stay with me, she begged. Please, Buddy, just stay with me. She stroked his head, his fur damp with sweat and blood. His tail gave the faintest twitch. Margaret choked on a sob. This dog, this brave, selfless dog, had nearly died for her. And now, would he even make it? Would help come in time? The evening air had never felt so cold. She curled around him, whispering, pleading, promising everything would be okay. But deep down, she didn't know if that was true. The wail of sirens cut through the still evening air. Margaret barely registered it. She was too focused on Buddy. He was still breathing, but barely. His fur, once a golden tan, was now streaked with deep red, darkening with every slow, labored inhale. Margaret didn't care about the pain in her own leg. Didn't care about the distant hum of voices or the crunch of approaching footsteps. All she cared about was him. Stay with me, she whispered, one hand pressed gently to his side, the other stroking his broad head. You're the bravest boy, Buddy. The strongest. His tail twitched. Just barely. Margaret let out a shaky breath. Then, Margaret. A voice. Familiar. Urgent. She turned her head just as Buddy's owner, Steve, sprinted toward them, his face pale with fear. The second he saw Buddy, he froze. His breath caught. Oh, God. Then he was beside them, hands hovering like he wasn't sure where to touch, what to do. Margaret swallowed hard. He saved me. Steve's throat bobbed. His gaze flickered from Buddy's still form to Margaret's blooded hands, to the deep scratches along her leg. He didn't need to ask what happened. His jaw clenched. Then, his hand found Buddy's fur. A slow, trembling stroke. Good boy, Steve whispered. You did good. The sirens grew louder. Lights flashed in the distance, casting long, eerie shadows against the pavement. More voices. Neighbors stepping out onto porches, drawn by the commotion. A few gasps. Whispers. Margaret caught snippets. A bobcat attack. That pit bull saved her? I thought he was dangerous. Her eyes stung. She looked down at Buddy, at the dog so many had once feared. They didn't know. They didn't see what she saw. The loyalty. The heart. The unwavering courage in his tired, pain-glazed eyes. Margaret reached for Steve's hand, gripping it tight. We have to save him, she said, voice thick. He saved me. Steve nodded. And then, they were surrounded. First responders swarmed the driveway, a blur of movement and flashing lights. Margaret was lifted, hands checking her wounds, voices murmuring assurances. But all she could focus on was Buddy. Someone knelt beside him. A paramedic. Checking his breathing. His wounds. Margaret tensed. Please. Please let him be okay. She heard a voice, firm, decisive. He's lost a lot of blood. We need to move fast. Margaret exhaled a shaking breath. He was alive. Alive. Then Steve was moving, talking fast, making sure Buddy was taken care of. Margaret didn't let herself cry. Not yet. Not until she knew he'd make it. Margaret sat in the vet's office, hands clasped tight in her lap. Her leg was stitched up. The pain had dulled to a distant throb. But she didn't care about that. She only cared about one thing. The door swung open. Steve stepped inside. And behind him, Margaret gasped. Buddy. His side was wrapped in fresh bandages, his movements slow. But his eyes, they were bright. Strong. Margaret's heart clenched. She dropped to her knees, ignoring the ache in her leg, reaching out as Buddy pressed into her. Warm. Solid. Alive. She let out a breathy laugh, wrapping her arms around his thick neck. Hey, hero, she whispered. His tail wagged. The story hit the local news. A pit bull, once misunderstood, had fought off a pack of bobcats to save an elderly woman's life. The same dog that some had crossed the street to avoid. The same dog that had been called dangerous. Margaret couldn't count how many neighbors had stopped by, some with teary apologies, others with treats for Buddy, all of them saying the same thing. I was wrong about him. Margaret just smiled. She'd known the truth all along. Buddy wasn't a monster. He was a guardian angel in disguise. Bravery isn't about size or breed. It's about heart. And Buddy? His heart was bigger than anyone had ever imagined. Do you believe animals have a sixth sense for danger? Have you ever seen a pet do something incredible? Tell us your story in the comments. We'd love to hear it. And if this story moved you, subscribe for more heroic animal stories. Because sometimes, the bravest heroes walk on four legs.